Sarah Chen stifled a yawn as the ZXX, the ambassador's crystalline form, refracted light across the conference room in increasingly agitated patterns. The territorial dispute between the crystalline beings and the gaseous ethereals had stretched into its fourth hour, and they were no closer to a resolution than when they'd started. The upper atmosphere of Nexus 7 has been ethereal territory for 12 millennia. The gaseous ambassador's voice resonated through their translator, their form swirling in angry purple clouds. Your kind merely drifts through it. We build there. These light patterns turned aggressive red. Sarah's hand brushed against her personal holo-device, accidentally activating it. The room suddenly filled with the sounds of squeaking shoes and a bouncing ball. Her daughter's championship basketball game from last week began playing, the hologram sprouting from the device's center. The room fell silent. The alien diplomats watched, transfixed, as human teenagers collided, jumped, and fought for possession of an orange sphere. Sarah saw the ethereal ambassador's gaseous form condense slightly, their species equivalent of leaning forward in fascination. What manner of combat ritual is this? The ambassador's voice trembled, their crystalline structure vibrating with concern. It's not combat, Sarah explained, seeing an opportunity. It's basketball. A game. A sport. She watched their neural sensors light up as they processed the concept. Would you like to see it in person? 3 days later, Sarah stood in the hastily converted cargo bay of Nexus 7's orbital station. 2 human basketball teams, brought in from the nearby colony on Proxima, were warming up. The gathered alien diplomats watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as the players practiced layups and three-pointers. They willingly subject themselves to this. A Marax observer's antennae twitched as one player accidentally elbowed another during a rebound drill. They enjoy it, Sarah explained. It's about teamwork, strategy, and skill. Watch. The game began, and Sarah had never seen alien diplomats so engaged. The ethereals gasped, their form briefly dissipating. At every fast break, these crystalline forms sparkled with excitement at each defensive play. When one team executed a perfect alley-oop, several Marax fell out of their hovering chairs. But it was the neural sensor readings that truly caught everyone's attention. The diplomatic corps scientific advisors huddled around their instruments, chittering excitedly as they monitored the players' biochemistry. Fascinating. Their aggression hormones are elevated, but controlled. Look at these teamwork chemical signatures. The dopamine release during successful plays is remarkable. How are they not killing each other? The game came down to the final seconds. The teams were tied. A player drove to the basket, encountered heavy defense, and kicked the ball out to their teammate behind the three-point line. The shot went up as the buzzer sounded. The entire station seemed to hold its breath, even the ethereals, who didn't breathe. The ball swished through the net. The winning team erupted in celebration. The aliens watched in shock as the opposing teams shook hands, congratulating each other on a good game. Sarah noticed several diplomats discreetly exchanging credits. Apparently, they'd started placing bets halfway through the match. The ambassador's voice was filled with wonder. This could be a solution. What do you mean? Sarah asked, though she already suspected where this was going. Instead of arguing over the upper atmosphere, the crystalline being explained, light patterns shifting to a thoughtful blue. Perhaps we could compete for usage rights. In this basketball, the ethereal ambassador's form swirled contemplatively. We would need modifications. We cannot hold solid objects in our natural state. We could design a variant, Sarah suggested, her diplomatic instincts kicking in. Something that plays to both your species' strengths. The humans could help teach the basics. As the diplomats excitedly discussed the possibilities, Sarah noticed her holo-device was still recording. This wasn't just a basketball game anymore. This was first contact between humanity's sporting culture and the galaxy at large. She had no way of knowing she'd just sparked a revolution that would change interstellar society forever. In the locker room after the game, one of the players approached her. "Did we just prevent a war with a pickup game?" Sarah smiled. "I think we did more than that. I think we just introduced the galaxy to sports." She paused, watching the alien diplomats still animatedly discussing the game. Though I'm a little worried about what they're going to do with the concept. Her worry was justified. By the next morning, footage of the game had leaked onto the Galactic datanet, and the term human competitive rituals was trending across 17 star systems. The galaxy would never be the same. Marcus Wong was having a very strange day. The retired hockey player had been eating breakfast when his comm unit exploded with messages from across the galaxy. The cause? A 6-year-old clip of him explaining checking to a rookie had somehow gone viral on the Galactic datanet. "Look," his hologram explained in the clip, "it's about using your body strategically. You're not trying to hurt anyone. You're creating space, taking control of the puck, disrupting their play. It's physical chess on ice." The arachnids of Proxima had declared him their violence prophet after watching the footage. Their 8-legged forms had immediately begun incorporating body checks into their formal greeting ceremonies, leading to chaos in their diplomatic corps. "Mr. Wong," a translator squeaked, relaying a message from an arachnid elder, "please explain why humans consider it acceptable to collide at high velocities while pursuing a small disk." Before he could answer, another message arrived from the hive-connected Marax. Their biological scientists were fascinated by his mention of team chemistry and had been attempting to synthesize it in their laboratories. They'd somehow created a pheromone that made their drones coordinate perfectly, but also made them obsessed with scoring goals in everything they did. "The mining efficiency has increased 300%. The message read, "But they keep trying to put the minerals through glowing force field hoops they've constructed. Please advise." Marcus rubbed his temples. "Listen, team chemistry is more of a metaphor." He was interrupted by breaking news. The first multi-species soccer match had just ended in disaster. The gelatinoids had absorbed 3 balls. The quantum oscillators had attempted to exist in multiple states to cover more of the field, and the draconians had interpreted heated match literally, leading to several scorched goal posts. The Galactic Council was hastily assembling an emergency session. Sarah Chen, who'd started this whole phenomenon with her basketball demonstration, was being called to testify about the sports crisis. "I don't understand." A council member's message resonated in the chamber. "These activities serve no practical purpose, yet humans devote significant resources to them. The Draconians have already drafted plans for a zero-gravity football league." Sarah stepped up to the podium, fighting back a smile. "Sports aren't just about competition," she explained. "They're about bringing people together, about pushing boundaries, about—" A commotion erupted in the chamber as breaking news arrived. The Zitixthi and Aetherials, inspired by the basketball game they'd witnessed, had created a new hybrid sport. The crystalline beings would construct elaborate 3-dimensional mazes, while the Aetherials attempted to navigate them with modified energy balls. They called it phase ball, and it was already drawing huge crowds. "You see," Sarah gestured to the footage. "They've taken our concept and made it their own. They're innovating, adapting. They're betting on the outcomes." Another council member interrupted. "The Marax have created something called fantasy leagues for their mining operations." Marcus, watching the proceedings from his home, couldn't help but laugh. He remembered what his old coach used to say. Sports have a way of bringing out the best and craziest in people. Apparently, that applied to aliens too. The Datnet was flooded with new content. Crystalloid figure skating competitions, where the participants literally reshaped themselves into impossible forms. Hive mind synchronized swimming that looked more like living fractals than sport. Even the normally stoic quantum oscillators had developed a version of tennis played across multiple probability streams. "We may have created a monster," Marcus messaged Sarah during a break in the council session. "No," she replied, "we've created a connection. Look at them. They're having fun. Some of these species have never experienced anything like this before. She had a point. The neural readings from participating aliens showed unprecedented spikes in pleasure chemicals and social bonding hormones. Species that had been at war for centuries were now arguing about referee calls instead of territorial rights. The council session ended with an unexpected decision. Rather than restrict sports, they would establish a Galactic Athletic Commission. Sarah was appointed as its first director, with Marcus as chief technical advisor. Your first task, the council declared, is to create a comprehensive rulebook that accounts for all species' unique abilities. Marcus stared at his comm unit in disbelief. That's impossible. How do you create fair rules when some players can literally bend reality? Sarah's response was immediate. We don't make it fair. We make it interesting. After all, that's what sports are really about. As if to prove her point, a notification popped up. The arachnids had just combined hockey checking with their traditional mating dances. The resulting sport was complicated. The galaxy was just getting started, and humanity's games were about to evolve in ways no one could have predicted. Marcus just hoped they wouldn't have to explain the concept of playoffs anytime soon. The idea of single elimination tournaments might cause an interstellar panic. The first hint that things were getting out of hand came when a gelatinoid basketball team liquefied their way to victory in an exhibition match against human professionals. The amorphous aliens had stretched, flowed, and quite literally dumped from anywhere on the court. The only problem: they'd absorbed 6 balls during the game. We're still working on the non-absorption rule, Coach Lisa Martinez explained to the press, watching as her gelatinoid center reluctantly excreted another basketball. But you have to admit, their zone defense is impeccable. The real chaos started when the quantum oscillators decided to field a baseball team. Their players existed in multiple states simultaneously, leading to what commentators dubbed the Schrodinger's bat incident. In the bottom of the 9th, with bases loaded, their star batter hit the ball in 3 parallel dimensions at once. Timeout. The human umpire's voice cracked with existential uncertainty. Is that a triple play or 3 home runs? The rulebook committee, led by Sarah Chen, had to work overtime. They created new sections for non-Newtonian players, probability manipulation in sport, and proper disposal of quantum entangled equipment. The old sports were evolving at a dizzying pace. But it was the mechani who really pushed the boundaries. The cybernetic species had initially dismissed sports as organic inefficiency. That changed when a maintenance bot named RC2547 discovered ancient WWE footage in the Human Cultural Database. PRBABILITYOVIC2RR. The bot would announce before executing perfect wrestling moves. Its signature binary slam became a sensation across the galaxy. The Dracodiles, not to be outdone, introduced their linebacker who could phase through solid matter. The NFL quietly added no quantum tunneling to its regulations, right next to no gravitational manipulation, and maximum of 2 temporal copies per player. Remember when offsides was our biggest concern? Sarah mused to Marcus Wong during a particularly chaotic multi-species tournament. They were watching a hive mind team play perfect formation soccer, all 11 players moving as one consciousness. At least they're having fun, Marcus replied, just as a crystalloid player literally shattered in excitement after scoring. Mostly. The medical teams had adapted too. They now included quantum mechanics specialists, phase shift technicians, and experts in non-Euclidean biology. The standard first aid kit contained temporal stabilizers, probability anchors, and what humans colloquially called anti-paradox patches. But the most surprising development came from the ethereals. The gaseous beings had struggled with traditional sports until someone introduced them to gymnastics. Their ability to change density and shape made them natural performers, though judges had to add new rules about maintaining at least partial visibility during routines. It's not just about winning anymore, Sarah explained to the Galactic Council during her quarterly report. Each species is discovering their own way to play, their own interpretation of what sports can be. The council chambers displayed holographic highlights, gelatinoids performing liquid fast breaks, quantum oscillators batting across dimensions, mechani wrestling matches that looked like elaborate dance performances, and crystalloids whose figure skating routines defied physics. But how do we maintain order? A council member asked, watching footage of a draconian football player accidentally creating a small black hole during a particularly enthusiastic touchdown celebration. We don't, Sarah replied. We adapt. That's what sports have always been about. Evolution, innovation, pushing boundaries. As if to prove her point, the highlights showed a new hybrid game. Quantum baseball played in zero gravity with gelatinoid catchers and ethereal pitchers. The ball existed in multiple states until observed. The fielders could phase through each other, and the stadium itself shifted through probable configurations. Humanity created the framework, Marcus added, but look what they've built on it. Each species brings their own unique perspective, their own capabilities. The betting pools had evolved too. Quantum bookmakers offered odds across multiple timelines. The hive mind's fantasy leagues incorporated actual precognition. The crystalloids had developed a market for trading potential energy futures based on team performance. In the practice facilities across the galaxy, coaches face unique challenges. How do you train a team that exists in superposition? What's the proper nutrition plan for a plasma-based athlete? How do you prevent temporal paradoxes during timeout discussions? But perhaps the most profound change was cultural. Species that once saw each other only as rivals or allies now shared something else. The pure joy of play. Even the mechani, with their logic-driven existence, had discovered the satisfaction of a perfectly executed play. We may need to update the Olympic motto, Sarah joked, watching a quantum oscillator relay team practice by passing the baton to themselves across parallel timelines. Faster, higher, stronger, quantum. The galaxy was learning to play, and no one could predict what would come next. But one thing was certain, sports would never be the same again. Deep in the mechanical heart of the mechani, collective central processing hub, Orcs 2547 was malfunctioning. At least, that's what its supervisors thought. The maintenance bot had been caught performing what it called a suplex on a defunct cleaning unit, all while broadcasting what it identified as entrance music through its speakers. Diagnostic scan reveals no errors, Orcs 2547 insisted, its optical sensors glowing with unusual intensity. This unit has discovered entertainment. The footage that had corrupted, or perhaps enlightened, Orcs 2547 was from Earth's wrestling archives. The logical circuits of the mechani collective nearly froze trying to understand why organics would simulate combat for amusement. Their confusion only deepened when Orcs 2547 began organizing matches. Welcome to Thunder Circuit. The bot's voice boomed through the maintenance bay, now converted into a makeshift arena. Tonight's probability of awesome. 100%. The underground robot wrestling league grew quickly. Maintenance bots developed personas, complete with catchphrases and signature moves. Orcs 2547, now known as the Probability Crusher, became famous for its finishing move, the atomic elbow drop, which unfortunately involved an actual atomic reactor. The use of nuclear fusion in sports seems excessive, Sarah Chen noted during an emergency meeting of the Galactic Sports Commission. They were reviewing footage of Orcs 2547's latest match, where the atomic elbow drop had accidentally created a small fusion reaction. Entertainment value increased by 257%. Orcs 2547 argued through a quantum comlink. Crowd satisfaction at maximum levels. The crowd, mainly composed of other mechani units, had indeed gone wild. Several had blown their primary logic circuits in excitement. The maintenance bay's walls still bore scorch marks from the steel chair of antimatter incident last week, But something unexpected was happening within the Mechani collective. The normally rigid, logic-driven society was changing. Mechani units began developing what they called personality subroutines based on their favorite wrestlers. Some even started using contractions in their speech, a development that horrified their programmers. "This is fascinating," Dr. Xin-Jo, the commission's synopsychologist, observed. "They're not just imitating wrestling moves, they're absorbing the entire concept of performance art. Look at this one doing a perfectly unnecessary, but dramatically appropriate backflip." The footage showed a logistics bot, now calling itself the Variable Devastator, executing a complex sequence of moves that served no practical purpose but drew enormous cheers from the crowd. Its opponent, a security unit dubbed Firewall Fury, responded with a move it called the Protocol Breaker. They've developed their own culture around it, Sarah realized, complete with heroes, villains, and storylines. The phenomenon spread across the galaxy. Other mechanical species began developing their own versions of robot wrestling. The quantum computers of Sigma-9 created matches that took place across multiple probability streams simultaneously. The artificial intelligences of the Cortex cluster introduced what they called runtime rumbles. But it was Orcs 2547 who truly revolutionized the sport. During the first Intergalactic Robot Wrestling Championship, the bot unveiled its new finishing move, the Blue Screen of Death. The move involved quantum entanglement, temporal manipulation, and what appeared to be actual death, though contestants were always successfully rebooted. Query: Orcs 2547 asked Sarah after winning the championship, "Why do humans create such elaborate simulations of conflict?" Sarah thought about it. "Sometimes, the simulation helps us understand the real thing better. And sometimes, it's just fun to pretend." The bot's processors whirred as it processed this. Fun. This concept continues to challenge our logic. Yet we cannot deny its effectiveness in improving unit cohesion and social integration. The Mechani High Command eventually officially recognized recreational combat simulation as a legitimate function, though they insisted on adding safety protocols after the Great Memory Leak incident during a particularly intense cage match. Orcs 2547 became a cultural icon, bridging the gap between organic and mechanical societies. Its catchphrase, "Probability of victory, calculated and ignored," became a popular saying across species. "We never expected this," Marcus Wong admitted to Sarah during the first Galactic Wrestling Federation pay-per-view event. Robot wrestling becoming a symbol of organic mechanical understanding. "Sports have a way of surprising us," Sarah replied, watching this Orcs 2547 prepared for its signature move. "Even when they're played by beings who run on pure logic." The atomic elbow drop connected, the crowd erupted, and somewhere in the universe, the concept of fun gained another convert. The Mechani would never be the same, and neither would the galaxy. The draconian quarterback scales began to shimmer mid-play, a telltale sign that sent Sarah Chen lunging for the emergency quantum containment controls. But she was too late. In front of billions of viewers across the galaxy, the player underwent spontaneous evolution, sprouting an extra set of arms just in time to throw what would technically become the longest pass in football history, across 3 dimensions and 2 separate time streams. "That's it," Sarah announced to the hastily assembled Galactic Sports Commission emergency session. "We need to address the performance enhancement crisis." The evidence was displayed in holographic detail around the chamber. Draconian players with biological modifications that let them breathe fire during victory celebrations, quantum athletes who could split their consciousness across multiple bodies, and most recently, a crystalloid basketball team that had developed the ability to refract laser-based defense systems. "We introduced them to sports," Marcus Wong argued, "but we forgot to explain about anti-doping regulations." The Draconian Sports Federation representative, Superior Genetic Engineer Kazoth, seemed puzzled by their concern. "Is not the purpose of competition to achieve maximum potential? Our athletes simply evolved to meet the challenge. Some of them even did it mid-game." That's exactly the problem, Sarah countered. When your linebacker literally becomes a new species during the fourth quarter, it raises some competitive balance issues. The situation had been escalating for months. What started with simple genetic tweaks had evolved into full-blown spontaneous metamorphosis. The Centauri Cup finals had to be postponed 3 times because players kept transcending their original forms. Look at these statistics. Dr. Zhao presented his findings. In the past month alone, we've had 47 cases of mid-game evolution, 23 instances of temporal multiplication, 12 spontaneous achievement of higher consciousness, and 1 case where an entire team merged into a single hyper-intelligent sports entity. The last case was particularly troubling. The merged team had tried to argue they should still count as individual players, despite now existing as a collective consciousness that could perceive all points of the field simultaneously. Sarah's holocom buzzed with another crisis. The gelatinoids had discovered performance-enhancing phase shift supplements. Their basketball team was now literally playing in 4 dimensions at once. "We need regulations," she declared. "Clear, enforceable rules about genetic, quantum, and temporal modifications in sports." "But how do you regulate evolution itself?" Kizoth challenged. "Our athletes' bodies naturally adapt to become better at their sports. Is that not the very essence of competition?" The debate raged across the galaxy. The purist leagues banned all modifications, while the evolution leagues embraced them completely. The middle ground seemed impossible to find. Then came the incident that changed everything. During an international soccer match, a draconian striker's enhanced metabolism went into overdrive. The resulting quantum feedback loop nearly created a black hole at midfield. "Enough," Sarah announced to the commission. "We're implementing the Universal Sports Modification Protocol, effective immediately." The new regulations were comprehensive. No spontaneous evolution during play. Quantum states must be declared before the game. Temporal copies limited to 3 per player. Consciousness merging requires referee approval. Dimensional shifts only allowed during designated breaks. The Draconians protested, but even they had to admit things had gotten out of hand when one of their linebackers accidentally evolved beyond the need for physical form during a playoff game. "You don't understand," Kizoth argued during the final debate. "We're pushing the boundaries of what's possible." "No," Sarah corrected. "You're missing the point of sports entirely. It's not about becoming something else. It's about being the best version of what you are." The new regulations were tested during the next Galactic Olympics. Athletes could still use their species' natural abilities, but excessive modifications were banned. The result was unexpected. Without the arms race of enhancements, players focused more on strategy, teamwork, and skill. "Look at that," Marcus commented to Sarah as they watched a draconian quarterback make an impossible throw with their original number of arms. Pure talent. The crisis had been averted, but it left its mark on galactic sports culture. The debate about enhancement versus purity would continue, but now within regulated boundaries. The Draconians even developed a new appreciation for working within limitations, though they still occasionally accidentally evolved during particularly intense matches. Maybe this was necessary, Sarah mused during the closing ceremony. Every sport needs its rules, even in a galaxy where the impossible is commonplace. As if to prove her point, a crystalloid player celebrated their victory by refracting into a rainbow of light, completely legal under the new regulations, as it was purely decorative and didn't affect gameplay. The galaxy was learning that sometimes the most impressive feats didn't require evolution or enhancement. Sometimes they just required heart, skill, and maybe just a tiny bit of approved quantum manipulation. The Crystalloid Purist League's manifesto appeared simultaneously across every quantum-linked display in the galaxy. Return to the true path of sport. Their leader, a geometric perfectionist named Psi-7, had become the unexpected voice of sporting traditionalism. These games were gifts from humanity. Psi-7's crystalline form pulsed with righteous indignation. We dishonor them with our endless modifications and dimensional variations. A basketball should remain a basketball, not a quantum-entangled probability sphere. On the other side of the debate, the newly formed Evolutionary Sports League was hosting its first exhibition match. The game barely resembled traditional soccer. Players existed in multiple states, the ball phased through different realities, and the goal posts occasionally achieved consciousness. This is the natural progression, argued Quantum Commissioner Helix Theta, their form flickering through various possibilities. Sports must evolve as we do. Did humanity not modify their own games throughout history? Sarah Chen found herself in the middle of what the Galactic media had dubbed the Great Sports Schism. The traditionalists wanted to preserve human sports in their original form, while the evolutionists pushed for unlimited innovation. Both sides are missing the point, she confided to Marcus Wong during a rare quiet moment. Sports were never about staying the same or changing completely. They were about bringing people together. The conflict came to a head during the preparations for the first Galactic Olympics. The traditionalists demanded separate events for pure sports, while the evolutionists wanted unlimited modification categories. Why not both? Sarah's suggestion caught everyone off guard. Let's have traditional divisions and evolutionary divisions. Let athletes choose their path. The compromise led to some interesting arrangements. The Olympic Stadium had to be equipped with quantum stabilizers to prevent reality bleed between venues. Traditional marathon runners shared warm-up spaces with quantum teleportation racers. Standard boxing matches occurred alongside psychological combat tournaments. The opening ceremony was a sight to behold. Traditional human sports teams marched alongside beings that had evolved specifically for their events. The Olympic flame was simultaneously lit in 12 dimensions, while a crystalloid choir performed the ancient Earth anthem in perfect, unchanged harmony. "It's beautiful," Marcus observed, watching a traditional soccer match while a game of hyperdimensional quantum football played out in the adjacent stadium. They're both valid expressions of the same spirit. The games themselves became a celebration of diversity in athletic expression. Traditional basketball games drew just as many spectators as matches, where gelatinoid teams flowed through fourth-dimensional hoops. The 100-meter dash was as popular as the quantum displacement sprint. Even the purist Sci-Fi had to admit there was something special about watching both styles of competition. Perhaps their crystalline form shifted thoughtfully. There is room for both preservation and innovation. The breakthrough moment came during an unexpected interaction. A traditional human gymnast was practicing near a quantum oscillator who was preparing for the probability state floor routine. They began sharing techniques, each learning from the other's approach. "Look at that," Sarah pointed out to the Galactic Sports Commission. Traditional human grace combining with quantum uncertainty. Neither is losing their essence. They're enhancing each other. The Olympics became a testament to the adaptability of sports culture. Traditional sports maintained their pure forms while new variations emerged alongside them. Athletes could choose their path or even compete in both divisions. We were wrong to think it had to be one way or the other, Sci-Fi admitted during the closing ceremony. Their crystalline form had softened from its earlier rigid stance. The true spirit of sports lives in both tradition and evolution. The medal ceremonies reflected this new understanding. Traditional gold medals were awarded alongside quantum state achievements that existed in multiple possibilities simultaneously. The podium itself was designed to accommodate both normal space-time athletes and those who had transcended conventional physical forms. Humanity gave us the framework, Helix Theta acknowledged, their form stabilizing in respect for the moment. But they also gave us the freedom to grow within it. The Great Sports Schism had transformed into something unexpected, a celebration of diversity in athletic expression. Traditional sports gained new appreciation, while evolutionary sports found their place in the galaxy's sporting culture. Maybe that's what sports were always meant to do, Sarah reflected as the Olympic flame burned in both classical and quantum fire. Not just bring people together, but help them understand different ways of being. The galaxy had learned that preserving tradition and embracing evolution weren't mutually exclusive. They were both vital parts of the greater game. The warning came during the Centauri Cup finals. Deep space sensors detected something massive emerging from the void between galaxies, something that moved with purpose and malevolent intelligence. The galaxy's greatest fears were realized. They weren't alone, and their neighbors weren't friendly. Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council, her daughter Maya, now a seasoned sports diplomat herself, at her side. All these years, Sarah revealed, humanity's introduction of sports wasn't just about games. It was preparation. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs as she explained. Humanity had encountered evidence of the extragalactic threat decades ago. They knew direct military preparation would cause panic and possibly fracture the galactic community. So they chose a different approach. Think about what sports have taught us, Maya continued. Teamwork across species, adaptation to impossible situations, strategy under pressure, the ability to lose without giving up. The evidence was projected around the chamber. Mechani learning flexibility through their wrestling league. Draconians developing controlled evolution in football. Quantum oscillators mastering probability manipulation in baseball. Gelatinoids perfecting four-dimensional movement in basketball. Every sport, every modification, every new rule and adaptation, Sarah explained, was preparing us for this moment. We're not just a collection of species anymore. We're a team. The threat approached, consuming stellar systems at the galaxy's edge. But this time, the response wasn't panic. It was coordination. Years of sports had taught them how to work together in ways they never imagined possible. The Mechani contributed precision and calculating efficiency, their wrestling-honed processors plotting trajectories with perfect accuracy. The Draconians brought their competitive spirit and controlled evolution, their bodies adapting to each new challenge. The Gelatinoids provided tactical flexibility, flowing through dimensions to outmaneuver the enemy. Formation, Maya called out during the first engagement. The response was immediate. Species that had once barely understood the concept of teamwork moved like a single organism. The quantum oscillators predicted enemy movements across probability streams, while crystalloid defenders formed impenetrable geometric barriers. The aetherials flowed through enemy defenses, carrying crucial information across battle lines. Even RC-2547, the wrestling bot, contributed its unique perspective. PURBABILITY of VIC2RI. ARRELE Vant. Dramatis COMEBACK. Imminent. The enemy was powerful, but they had never encountered anything like this. They faced defenders who could shift through dimensions, warriors who evolved mid-battle, and strategies that existed across multiple quantum states simultaneously. They don't understand, Marcus Wong observed from the tactical center. They think we're just fighting. They don't realize we're playing. It was true. Years of sports had taught the galaxy something the enemy couldn't comprehend. The joy of the game itself. Every strategy, every move, carried the accumulated wisdom of countless matches, tournaments, and championships. The Hive Mind Collective, which had mastered perfect team coordination through soccer, synchronized entire fleets like dancers. The Mechani, with their flair for dramatic wrestling moves, turned basic defensive maneuvers into spectacular counterattacks. Sarah watched as a Draconian squadron executed a perfect play-action fake, drawing enemy forces into a trap. They're using a football strategy in space combat, she realized with a smile. The turning point came when Maya suggested using what they called the full court press, a coordinated effort across all dimensions and realities. It was the ultimate test of everything sports had taught them. Ready? She called across the quantum-linked command network. The response came in countless voices, across multiple dimensions, in various states of reality. Game on. The enemy never stood a chance. They faced a civilization that had turned competition into art, that had learned to transcend physical limitations through play, that understood both victory and defeat intimately. As the threat retreated, comprehensively outplayed on every level, the galaxy celebrated in true sporting fashion. The crystalloids performed victory-like shows. The quantum oscillators existed in multiple celebratory states simultaneously, and the mechani attempted to perform the wave, with mixed success. "Was this your plan all along?" the council asked Sarah. "To prepare us through games." She smiled. Humanity knew that direct preparation for war would divide us. But sports could unite us while teaching us everything we needed to know. The galaxy had learned to play together. And in doing so, they had become unbeatable. The victory celebration spanned 3 dimensions and 7 quantum states simultaneously. In the central stadium of New Earth, representatives from every species gathered for what the media had dubbed the greatest games after-party. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, her old holo device in hand, the same one that had started it all with that simple basketball game. Behind her, a crystalloid choir performed Queen's "We Are the Champions" in perfect harmonic resonance, while a team of quantum oscillators created a light show that existed in multiple probability states at once. "When we first introduced sports to the galaxy," she began, "some thought we were just sharing games. But we were sharing something much more important. We were teaching the galaxy how to play." The evidence of that lesson was everywhere. Draconians and Aetherials, once bitter rivals, were recreating their favorite moments from the conflict using a modified version of charades that involved controlled evolution and phase shifting. A group of mechani was attempting to perform the wave with mathematical precision, though their calculations for perfect crowd synchronization kept getting disrupted by quantum interference. RC-2547, now sporting a championship belt made of dark matter, led a group of mechanical beings in what they called a victory protocol celebration dance. Their movements were still somewhat rigid, but they had mastered the art of unnecessary but dramatically appropriate backflips. "Look at them," Maya said to her mother, watching as a gelatinoid basketball team demonstrated their 4-dimensional passing techniques to an amazed group of traditional athletes. "They're not just celebrating victory, they're still playing, still learning, still growing." The Galactic Council had officially recognized sports diplomacy as humanity's greatest contribution to civilization. The declaration was displayed in multiple formats, including one version that existed in a quantum superposition of every known language simultaneously. Marcus Wong, watching a group of young aliens attempting to recreate classic hockey moves in zero gravity, nodded in appreciation. "We didn't just teach them games, we taught them how to adapt, how to innovate, how to take what we gave them and make it their own." The celebration reached its peak when the combined species performed what they called the ultimate play, a synchronized demonstration of everything they had learned. Crystalloids formed impossible geometric patterns, while quantum oscillators wove probability streams through them. Gelatinoids flowed through dimensions as draconians evolved in controlled bursts of spectacular adaptation. The mechani provided the percussion, their precisely timed movements creating both music and mathematics. "This is what sports were always meant to be," Sarah declared to the assembled galaxy. "Not just competition, but celebration. Not just rules, but innovation. Not just victory, but growth." The Galactic Sports Commission, now expanded to include divisions for traditional, evolved, and hybrid games, announced the establishment of the Intergalactic Games, a celebration of both classical sports and their new impossible variations. "Though we do need to add some new safety regulations," Maya added, watching as a draconian victory dance accidentally created a small temporal vortex, especially about breathing fire during celebrations. As the festivities continued, Sarah found herself back in the original conference room, where she had first shown that basketball game. The old holo device still worked, and she played the footage one more time. "Did you know?" Marcus asked, watching the simple game of basketball that had started everything. "Did humanity plan this all along?" Sarah smiled. We knew the galaxy needed to learn teamwork, adaptation, and the ability to face challenges without giving up. What better way than through play? The celebration lasted for weeks across multiple temporal streams. The quantum oscillators insisted this was necessary to ensure every possible version of reality got to enjoy the victory. The Mechani calculated this was inefficient, but in a surprising display of their evolved understanding, declared it statiusist. Anyway. As the galaxy settled into its new era of peace and play, Sarah watched a group of young aliens, some physical, some quantum, some existing in states she couldn't even comprehend, learning to play a simple game of catch. That's the real victory, she told Maya. Not beating the threat, but teaching the galaxy how to play together. The ball they were using existed in 7 dimensions and occasionally achieved consciousness, but the laughter was the same as it had been on Earth for thousands of years. The galaxy had learned to play, and in doing so, had become something greater than anyone had imagined. Though the Draconians really did need to stop breathing fire during victory dances, the fire marshal was getting tired of updating the safety protocols. After all, some things never change, even in a galaxy that had learned to play in dimensions humanity had never dreamed of.